Oh, you can record. Okay, very good. So let me know when I can start.
Okay, I'm ready when you are.
Okay, so yeah, just before we were interrupted, I was giving you some reason why some people were not testing their application. So they gave us, so I had three different things, like we don't have time to test, slow me down. So usually it's a matter of time. And the last one I like it because when I asked one person, why do you don't test? He just told me, I don't know. I think I like this answer because that's the honest answer. And so if you are in this position where you don't know how to test your application and what to test, well, that's very good because I will try to reply to this question. So first, why do we need to test an application? The first part for me, it's about confidence. Confidence that you are delivering code and the code is working as described. So you know that you're not gonna break anything. The second one is about deploying on Friday. You probably saw some memes on Twitter from people saying, oh, don't deploy on Friday. Well, I cannot disagree with this one because there are some companies like GitHub. I think they probably deploy 600 times a week or a month, sorry. So I think when you are at this point, you deploy every day. How to ensure that you are not breaking anything because you have tests. So that's also something that can help you to deploy whenever you want. I also think that sometimes tests can contribute to the code base of your application because you can have a wiki or whatever, but it's not completely up to date. The good advantage with test is it will be always up to date. Otherwise, the test will be red. Also, I think it can help people to write better code. And the last point is can be true or false in some parts, but it can reduce the cost of the maintenance. Well, if you just need to do one page, it's probably not worthy. But for in the long-term vision, like the product I'm working on, yes, it reduces the maintenance on the long-term vision. But yeah, if you just have to do one page, or if it's just a one page for your website, maybe it's not worthy. Okay, so now let's see on the what to test. When it comes to testing, often the people are talking about this pyramid. So basically, on the very bottom, we got the unit test. So the unit tests are cheap and they are fast, so you should write a lot of them. After they got some integration tests that are kind of slow and expensive, so write a few of them and write not so many end-to-end tests because they are super slow and super expensive. But in reality, I got this Dorito, I saw this on Twitter and there were a guy kind of reverting this pyramid and say, okay, there are the tests I plan to write and actually I won't write a lot of tests and at the end, I don't write a lot of tests. So I think to come back on this pyramid, I think this pyramid was true something like 10 years ago. But right now, the things have changed. So the computer we are using are not the same as 10 years before, and the software is the same. Also, we can't really rely on unit tests because unit tests only focus a small part of your application. And I prefer this approach from Kent. And basically, Kent introduced another layer called the static testing. And he also like to rely in a lot of integration tests. And I think it's a good approach. So I was talking about static testing. So what is static testing? You probably heard about ESLint. So you can disagree or not if it's testing or not, but it's basically software that can go through your code and say, oh, you forget your semicolon, you forget this. Yes, it can be sometimes annoying, but to me, it's really interesting to get tools like this in your code base because it can catch some stuff like, oh, you put 2 equal instead of 3, or you declare one variable, this variable is not used anymore. Also, it can reuse all the backshading debates, like if you have to use tab, space, semicolon, the 2 space indentation versus 4 space indentation. I mean, when we develop software, we don't want to worry about those questions. We want to focus on what really matters. Also, if you work in companies, you can easily extend those kind of tools and set some rules like, I don't know, for my company, we've got some specific rules. And so I add them into our ESLint rules. And now when we add some code in the software, we know that we are following the company rules. The second part is the unit test. So the thing about unit test is not to test the whole application, but just some very small parts. For that, I recommend you to use a tool called Jest. Jest is very good because there are some interesting called like the watch mode. So you can just execute one test, and while you are developing, when every time you save your file up, it's getting refresh, and you can see live if it's green or not. So you can just select some files, etc. If you're using VS Code, it's very well integrated. Sometimes something called snapshot testing. I will talk about it later. So one example on testing with Jest. Let's say I want to test a VAT calculator, or VAT, it's the tax. So when you pay something like a pizza, 10 euros, in some countries, you give the two of the 10 euros go for the country. So I got a VAT calculator, basically. I put an object, which is a menu, and it will give me it will return the amount of tax for this menu. So I got the first it. So in the it, basically here, you put whatever you want. It's just a string to describe your test. And after, I kind of split my test in 3 different parts. It's following this method called AAA. So first we arrange, we prepare the test. After we act, so we compute the value, and at the end, we do the assertion. Okay, I expect my VAT to be 1.3. And when I run the test, it's green. Okay, test is passing. It's red, it's not passing. But, well, we are in a Vue meetup. How does it work for Vue.js? One thing I recommend to you is to test your component as a black box. What do I mean by a black box is if we have the component here, just test the input and the output. So what does it mean? It means that in your test, you should not trigger the method or the computed stuff, or you should not access directly to the component. You should only pass some inputs and check the outputs. Why we don't want to test this is because if tomorrow, let's say I got a counter button, every time I press, it's increments. If the value inside the counter, if the variable is a letter like I, or if it's count, counter, whatever, it doesn't really matter. What do we want is we press, the value is incremented. So that's how you should test your components. It's very important. There are a lot of misconceptions around this. So yeah, tests. So pass some props, and at the end, check how the DOM is or what is emitted, etc. Also, another thing is what is the definition of a good test? Well, first for me, it's need to be really simple. I recommend you to avoid all the for each, for all the loop or the if condition. Try not to put them in your test. Make it simple, like 0 level of indentation, basically. You just go. Another thing is it should be fast, I think. First, because we don't like to wait. If you have to wait, I don't know, 1 hour just to go just to know if it's working or not, at the end, people will not write tests and they will not be used. Another thing, it's very common. Sometimes people want to test some external library. So let's say if I got, if I'm using, if I got an application that is using, I don't know, a store, for instance, if I'm using a sub library for, let's say, get the VAT, I should not test that the VAT it's correctly compute. This is not the purpose of the app. It's the purpose of the test inside the VAT library. So, and same, if you are testing a Vue.js application that is using a Vue router, don't test all the thing related to the Vue router, like the URL are changed. This is not your job. It's the job of the test inside the Vue router. So just focus on your application. The last part is, for me, the last point for testing, for having a good test is to cover the most common usage. It's okay not to cover all the usage, just cover the most common and the most important one. Talking about coverage, there was usually some reports done for coverage. So basically when you run tests, you can say, oh, this part of your test is not covered by test. So first, all these coverage are generated. So let's say I got a very simple function called foo, and I got an if and an else condition. So the tools will work as the following. They will add some, they will inject some code, basically some global objects, and every time they go there, they will increment. So this is very interesting because, as we can see, we are not, so the code coverage is not the code covered by code, but is the code executed by tests, which is a bit different. Also, yeah, all those things at the end will give you this report and give you, okay, here in this file, we have 92% of code coverage. So I guess you probably heard this, or you need to reach X% of coverage, but you don't really know what to do. That's actually kind of complicated because not all applications are the same. The problem is if you don't test enough, you will not be confident. But if you test too much, well, it will take too much time and it's not really worth it at some point. Also, one of the things is I will not recommend you to focus too much on the code coverage because, as I showed you before, it's super easy to trump this value. And also, well, I like this picture because, as you can see, you can get a high code coverage, but a lot of bugs because, yeah, not all the letters are in the correct place. This is pretty much the same in your code base. Also, another big misconception with code coverage is the amount of code coverage doesn't necessarily mean that this code is tested. Let's take this add function. Here, I'm just returning the a plus b, but I'm also doing something kind of stupid here. So if I do this test, so I assert that the value 1 and 2 will be 3, so my test will be green. So this value will be covered but not tested. So that's when the code coverage can be useless for me. So if you're interested, I wrote a blog post about it and why you shouldn't pay too much attention to your code coverage. Because for me, we should keep in mind that we test for confidence and also to avoid some bugs, but the amount of code coverage is not really important at the end. It represents your test, but it's not that important. Okay, that's what is sorry, for the code coverage parts. Now let's see something called snapshot testing. So before I recommended you to use Jest, so Jest come with something called snapshot testing. Usually when we test an application, we do something like this. So here I got my menu and oh, I got some price, another price here, but I don't really know what is the expected value. So I will put this very small console.log here. And after the console.log will tell me, oh, the result is 3.55. Okay, so now I can add my expect. So the guys from Facebook added this snapshot things because you can do this in one shot. Basically, you put this expect the VAT calculator. So expect what you want to expect to match snapshot. And when you execute this, it will generate a file inside a snapshot folder with the expected value here. So how does it work? So here I'm executing my test here. We compare the output. If the output is different, it will fail. And then it will say, okay, I just realized that the output is not the same as the last time you did it. So is it a bug? Or if it's not, then you need to update the snapshot. And if you update the snapshot, then your code will pass. It can be interesting for some components. We use it for very small components. Let's say I got an alert, like this kind of pop-up you can get sometimes in some websites. And here, so I'm mounting my component. So alert is my component, and I pass the property, message, and the value will be test message. And when I run expect wrapper.html to match snapshot, it will generate this. And it can be cool because I can get the DOM. And if tomorrow, let's say you want to add like a small button because you want to be able to close the alert, well, you will see that there will be another line. So that can be interesting because if the day after you want to change the way you do the button in your application, you will see that this test will be this test will be failing. So you will see where this change can be impacted in your app. Also, if you are using snapshots, just be aware there are some misconceptions about these snapshots. So the snapshot is not about doing Vsware regression testing. We are just, in the example before, I was just testing the DOM, but it's not only for the DOM. And the initial purpose of this was to add tests where there were no tests. So it's a very, very lazy way to provide tests. So as I showed you before with the VAT example, you don't really need to know the example. You just add you only add the expect value, and it will generate an output. With this kind of trick, you can add a lot of tests really quickly in your application. If you don't have tests, it can be interesting to start with snapshot. But yeah, it doesn't mean to replace in-year sessions. So don't only rely on snapshots. And also something I saw in some pull requests, sometimes some people were updating some snapshot, but they were not looking at the snapshot. So I remember one day I had this, and instead of this, I had undefined. And I was like, that's interesting because you are breaking something. But the person didn't check the snapshot because the person thought it was like a log file, etc. I don't think it's a good thing to do. I think we should look at every file when we have a pull request, even the log file, because sometimes we can spot some issue there. So don't forget to check the snapshots when you are reviewing a pull request. And sometimes we also get this situation where you have very massive snapshots. So remember one thing, we test for confidence. If you don't want to review big snapshots, then in this case, just use something else. Maybe snapshot is not good for this use case. If you are using ESLint, the tool I mentioned before, you can have this ESLint rule where it limits the snapshot to 12 lines. So it can be interesting. Okay, now let's talk a bit about integration tests. I think you always saw this kind of memes. There are a lot of videos like this on the internet. For me, they're super, super important to add integration test, because usually when you have big application, the problem are not in your components or in the small parts you are working on, but in everything as a whole. Like sometimes the interaction between two software or two pieces of software can be buggy. That's why I like this picture, because for me it's really relevant, and that's where I'm having issue. Like sometimes if you're using Vuex, so it's the state management, you will get some issue there. Usually my problem are in this space. So for that, I recommend you to use a tool called Vue Testing Library. It was made by Kensidot. If you are on Twitter, I recommend you to follow this guy. He's pretty awesome. Usually he gives some really good tips. And he also created this very cool library, which is also made for React. So you can use this library for, I think, almost every, well, the most common framework, testing framework. So yeah, it's very cool. And it also acts as a wrapper for Vue test utils, which is the library, the official library. And also the good news is the person working on Vue testing library are also testing on the official tools. So it's not like in the library, it's really present in the Vue.js ecosystem. So how does it work? Here I import two things, the render. So the render will create the component, and the screen will check what is on the screen. Okay, and I also need to import my components, which is my application here. Here I have a test, and I just want to see that I can render my pizza, my calzone. So first line, I render my application, and after I check on the screen that the word calzone is present. And I also want to check that the description is there. So it's working. And the last part is I want to check if the price is there. So that's a very basic example, but you can also do other things like interacting with the screen. So here I want to add items to my basket, because let's say I want to work for an application where I can find, where I can select my pizza and someone will deliver it to me, to my place. So here we need to use the fire events and fire events. So first I render my application, and after I throw an event like a click on my screen. I want to check for something called add curtain. So if you see the button add curtain, boom, I click. And after I want to click on margarita, etc. And after I want to see that in the menu, I got 3 times on my basket. And when I click on the basket, I got the correct price, etc. So you can really tweak your story in the way you want. At the end, you will get something very clean. And if you've been using the official tool, I've been using it and it was a bit messy at that time. My company and my colleague really like this library because it's make testing super easy. You will also face a problem at some point where if your application rely on an API, maybe you need to mock the results. But I don't recommend you to use mock too much because, well, for me, mock sucks. Because every time you use mock, you will take a different path from the reality. And what you want to test is something close to the reality. So my recommendation is to use mock as less as possible, but sometimes it's okay for, let's say you want to test some HTTP calls, if you want to test some stuff related to your browser, like the session storage, the navigator object. And I forgot to mention, but if you want to test everything related to the time, I don't know, but if you have something that gives you the time, what time is it right now? Maybe you want to mock the date, because on day 1 you will get the 26th of September, and day 2 the test will fail because it's not the 26th September, and you don't want to test to change your test every day. So usually, one small tip for this, I'm using my birthday. So when I see on my test something is failing, if the date is my birthday, I know that it's a fake date. Except when I'm working on my app the day on my birthday, but usually I'm not working on my birthday. Also, I mentioned before something called mount, shallow mounts. There are some concepts. So if you are using the official library, just to be quick, so mount, you will mount the component with all the child, and shallow mount, you will only focus on the components you want to mount, but all the sub-components, you will not see them. There are some debates on the internet if you have to use mount or shallow mount. For me, I prefer to use mount because I prefer to get a good vision of my software, but I get why people don't like shallow mount. So I don't really want to dig in this debate today, but after, pick the one you prefer, but you have to think about, okay, if I use this one, it's gonna be good because I will just focus on this one. And if this one is not working and this one is reused outside everywhere in my application, if it's fail, it's gonna fail everywhere. So that's basically the problem between them. So pick the one you want. The last part, I voluntarily omit the end-to-end part because I'm not really confident with it. If you want to use it, I recommend you to use a tool called Cypress. But I don't have time to speak about it because for me it also deserves another full-time session. So I will leave it for an upcoming talk maybe. Yeah, the last part is about more how people work together. yeah, I mentioned before automation, continuous integration. I think it's super important for everybody today in 2020 to use automation tools. If you are using GitHub, you can get it for free with the GitHub Actions. If you are using GitLab, you can use the pipelines. And basically, every time you are adding tests or every time you are adding code to your code base, you will run the test and it will be done by a robot. I think it's important to leave the job to a robot because, well, when you want to cross the road, if every time you have a guy telling, oh no, you have to wait. Okay, you can pass. You have to wait. You can pass. At the end, you will be kind of pissed off this guy because you say, okay, why me? Why, etc. But if it's done by robots, you know that the robot is stupid, but is applying the same rule for everybody. So that's why I think it's really important to delegate this task to a robot. Also, the other thing is the robots are cheap today. I saw some people running some Jenkins, which is continuous integration tools on Raspberry Pi, which is a 30 euros laptop. So I think it's okay. Oh, sorry, I don't have the conversion euros in the currency of Kenya, but it's something cheap. Another thing is use pull requests. If I even use pull requests for my own application, even if I'm the only one working on it, because every time I want to add code, it will trigger some tasks by this robot saying, okay, you are adding some regression, or you forget this, you forget this. And also because we can add some nice tools. So here I show you one, it's called Kotkov. And Kotkov will tell you, okay, so here you are adding new things. So you are adding more, you are adding more code, but take care. Okay, if you merge this pull request, you will increase the code coverage by 23%. So here I think this pull request was focused on tests. That's probably why the result is so big. But it can be interesting to follow the evolution of your code coverage. Even if I mentioned before, it's not something we should worry too much, but it can also be interesting to keep an eye on it. And also, if let's say you are in a company that don't have tests, that it can happen, there is this strategy I recommend you. It's called the Totem Team. I've been applying this strategy when I was consultant in one of my first company. So there were no tests. So basically what I did is every Friday, one person in the team had to add tests. So we spend every Friday, one person in the team were spending 100% of his time adding tests to the code base. So just by working like this with baby step, at the end, we reach something like a really decent code coverage, and we were also more confident by pushing code, by adding code. So yeah, if you cannot say from one day to another, you can use this strategy. Just ask to one person, or it can be one team. After, if you don't have time for one day, it can be half a day, etc. Just pick the granularity depending on what you want and what you can also. But that can be interesting for you. Another point, if you see that the test is red, so please don't delete the code, fix the code. That's something I saw in my actual company. Actually, I cannot obfuscate the code here, but I remember it was one of the very first tests we added to the code base. And I realized 3 months later that this test was completely commented because the guy was not able to maintain it. So it just commented the test. I don't think it's a good way to work. I think we should fix them, or yeah, fix them. And the last point, please do not consider tests as a nice to have. It should be a deliverable. Thank you for your attention. If you have some question, I will be happy to answer them. You have some question?
So hey guys, anyone with any question, please just feel free to say it out, or you can send a message via the chat. Then we'll be able to respond to it.
If we have time, if you want, I can show you also. I got a small example of some tests running. So maybe if you want, I can give you a very small demo. I don't know if we still have time or not, but if that's something that interests you, I can show you.
I have time.
Okay, very good. Okay, I will share my screen again. Oh, okay. So first, sorry. So we got one question from Abel talking about Selenium, and he asked if we think that Selenium is, well, does it really work the trouble, or do you think Selenium is worth taking a shot in place? Oh, okay. The last time I checked, Selenium were not maintained anymore, or the very last update on Selenium on GitHub was really old. So I'm not really confident about the future of Selenium today. I know that it's working, but there are also some really good stuff coming. They are already here, by the way. It's by Chrome. So Chrome released a headless Chrome. Basically, you can run Chrome in your console, and that's what is doing Cypress. So Cypress is executing your test with Chrome somehow. I believe that today that Cypress is a better shape than Selenium, but I'm not 100% sure about it. It was your question, Abel, yeah? Okay.
Yeah. Thanks for the answer.
But yeah, Cypress I'm not using professionally, so that's also why I didn't mention, I did not talk a lot about Cypress. I've been using it just for playing, but I got some really, really great feedback from people using Cypress. I know that Cypress can do unit tests. I'm not convinced at all, because for me, this is not the job for Cypress. I like to keep tools like Jest for unit test, but yeah, it can be interesting if you want some end-to-end tests. Yeah, you should probably consider Cypress. I got a lot of feedbacks. There were these polls recently about, I think it was the states of JavaScript. So they asked people to vote for the tools, and Cypress got some really, really good score. Okay, I got another question. What is the best way to test your store? Really good question. So I've done different tests for the store. So the store, yeah, Vuex. So Vuex is the store management for Vue. So at the beginning, I was unit testing my store, but I realized that unit testing store did not prevent my app from having bug. So I kind of changed my mind. So right now I use integration tests, and so I test. Well, I will show you in the live demo, because I'm also testing the store. And should it be done from a component perspective? Yes. So I will share my screen again. And if you want to add more questions, I will reply them just after. Okay. I don't need this now. No, I hope there is nothing. Okay, so I have this application here. So this is based on something called the Star Wars API. So it's basically an API, but for the Star Wars people. So here, if you want to get the list of the people, or if you want to get the starships, okay, I press request, and it's not working. I'm sure. Okay, there were a typo probably. Oh yeah, I put a slash. So you can get a lot of different starship. Okay, if I want to get the list of the starship, I need to do something like this, and I will get something like 36 starships, etc. And I decided to do a kind of shop, but for the starship. So here I got all the starship from the Star Wars, the movie, and I can add the X-Wing, the Y-Wing to my basket. I can also filter some product. I can load more data. I can check the detail of one product. Yeah, I can filter them if I want to filter all the wing products, etc. And after I can access to my basket. Let's say I want to add few X-Wing and the Falcon Millennium. Okay, and at the end I will get a crazy price, but doesn't matter. I don't have the buy button, so it doesn't really matter. So yeah, it's basically an application that is using the Vue router. So Vue router, it's the routing management for Vue, but it's also using the Vuex store. Okay, so if I go with the Vue tools, so I got an application, I got here the navbar component, I got my basket component, and as you can see here, I got the Vuex binding. So I'm using the store to store the total price, and also, yeah, all the item I have to my basket with, I guess, the quantity. Yeah, the quantity. Okay, and I'm also storing, well, etc. The way I've done the stuff are, well, I would not done this if it was a professional product, but I try to use the store, etc., just to show how we can test this application. So, okay, so how does it work? Here I got my application. It's a classic application. It's based on the Vue CLI. I only added testing library and I only added those two libraries, so just DOM and Vue. And right now, okay, so I've done some mock because I want to use the data from JSON file, but you don't really need to focus about that. I will just remove all the tests for now. So in Jest, if you want to skip some tests, you type exit or it.skip. I prefer exit because it's easier to manage with VS Code. I will open a new terminal, okay? So let's say, for instance, I want to test to show a product name, the detail and price. So here I just need to render my application. And after in the screen, I will check executor. I will check, so this is the description and this is the price. So npm test, I'm executing the tests. Well, sorry, they are all skipped, the tests, so I don't think it's gonna work. Yeah, so 8 skipped, but now I will focus on this one, npm test. And this is not the correct one. I wanted to check the one above. Okay, so I render my app. I want to see executor. I want to see this and this. We can check in the application. Where is it? So executor. So here. So this is what I want to check. I want to check if I have on my page the word executor, the word yard founder chipyard, and I also want to check if I have the price, because in the API the price is not formatted, but on my code I decided to format the price. So now I can run npm test. Okay, it's working. And we can also, just to show you that it's not fake, I can add another one for, let's say, the Falcon Millennium. And Korean engineering. And okay, the price is 1,000. Oops. Okay, and now I will get, I guess, something working. Yeah, so this test is working. Okay, I also tested something interesting. So, so what I recommend you is to keep some tests depending on what you want to test. So here I want to test the filtering. So let's say I type in wing here. So I want to test this functionality. So what do I have to do is, so first I want to select the filter result, and after, for better visibility, I will do something like this. Okay. So I want to change in this checkbox. I want to add the value wing. Well, this wording can be a bit annoying, but you know, when you select an item, it's work like the following. So if I store as a global variable an item one.value, yeah, but no, sorry, it's dot value. Okay, I will get wing. So that's why here we have to add this object with value wing. So here, if I want to type wing, I want to test that the word the star is not present, but I want to see that the test wing, the X wing is present, and same for the Y wing, etc. So for that, I have to use the await statement. Npm test, and it will be green. So I think this library is very cool because I can write tests in the same way I think about them. So let's say I want to check that, I don't know, I have, sorry. So I restart my page. So let's say I want to test that I have something like 9, 10 item at the beginning. I just write, I only need to write, it should load 10 item when I load the app. Okay, so I need to render the application. And after I can do something like screen. Actually, how to do that? Maybe I can find we can have something like screen dot find by text. So I can search that I have found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 8 items with at 2 baskets. And 2 sold out. So screens. Oh, so it's not get all by text. Sorry. Okay, so here I want all item by text, and here I want to do the same. This is returning me an array of elements. So this is a short trick. Okay, so just want to check what I'm getting if I'm doing this. My test is kit, so it won't work. I'm just commenting this one and this one. Okay, npm tests. Okay. Oh yeah. So here is complaining because well, it's a semicolon. So here is complaining, and something really cool with testing library is when something is not working, it will give you the full output. So here, if I check on my terminal, I will get the actual DOM, and the actual DOM completely match with what I have on my DevTools. So that's something interesting. And I think the problem is because here I forgot the plus, maybe, or maybe it was the case. Okay, so if I'm doing something like this, maybe I will get more items. Okay, it returned. So this is here. It's written an array.length. So I can do something like this, expect this value to be 7. Okay, there is a small typo somewhere, I guess. This is correct. And this is my array.length. Okay. And oh, maybe I need to think about this. Because this is actually, I'm not really relying on the API, but on some JSON file. And so yeah, on this JSON file, there are something like 7 items, sorry. So 8 items, and I guess the sold out item. So I'm using this, so costing credits. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this one is unknown. So to unknown, okay. So this is exact, it's 8. And here if I want to select the sold out, so I need to take care of the casing. So I can also add more this 8 with prices, 2 without. And if I execute, blah, 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 it should be. It's not working.
You missed an O, sold at.
Ah, thank you. You saved my life. And now that it's passing. Okay. Well, this one is a bit more messy because here there is no obvious way to check that there are 10 items, but this is a way to do it. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the testing library. If you want to know more about it, I wrote a blog post on my website called Vue Testing Made It Easy, where I detail how you can use it. So I'm talking about this application. All the code of this is on GitHub, so you can git clone, you can play with it if you want. Okay, I also explain how to play like with the keyboard, how to play with the mouse, how to use the view router, how to use Vuex. I'm not sharing it here, but in my company, we are using internalization tools. We are using so Vue ATM. We are also using the I forgot the name, but there is a library to manage the forms. So we are also using it with it. It's really, really well integrated. So basically, if you are using a library that's a big library with Vue, I think they might have example on the testing library website. So yeah, that's it for the demo. Got some. Please share link. Okay, I will share some link right now. Okay. So the demo. So this is the blog post. And I'm doing just some copy pasting here. Okay. Oh, we don't have the full URL. I will give you better one. Give me a sec. Where is that? Okay. Copy. Copy link. Okay, better. So demo is there, and the GitHub link. The GitHub link is there, and since we are here, well, no, I will not share right now the slide for the presentation. I will share it later. I will share it on Twitter, I think, and I will also send it to Philip so we can send it to the WhatsApp group, because if I understand correctly, you work a lot with WhatsApp. So I will give you the slide. I just need to update them because I'm not sure that the very last version is online. Do you have any other questions?
There is a thank you note from the chat. Masila is thanking you for the amazing talk and the demo too. it was such an amazing talk. Thanks for agreeing to this, Max.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we hope to have you some other time.
Yeah.
Anyone with more questions? Yeah, I think that's just it. I'll share with you the link that I just said. Yeah. Josh, do you have anything else to add before like we close this meeting?
Not really. It's been quite lengthy, but I believe we've taken in 1, 2, 3 things. Yeah, not much right now.
Okay, great. So guys, thanks again for joining in. We'll talk more.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. And thank you guys so much.
And yeah,
for,
if you have some question,
joining in. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that if you got some question, feel free to contact me. I try to be as accessible as possible, so don't be shy, and I will try to find some time to answer your question.
Okay. Again, thanks guys, and sorry about earlier. We solved working against that in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.